Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Paddo, and this is the AHGL game between Raytheon and Oracle. So for those of you who are wondering who are these two companies doing battle, Raytheon is actually the fourth largest defense contractor in America, in the United States. They actually are the largest manufacturer of guided missiles, and they make about $25 billion a year. On the other hand, Oracle, if you haven't heard of them before, they are the third largest software manufacturer behind IBM and Microsoft. So two big giants gonna rumble and bumble at it. And actually, speaking of rumble, Raytheon, the guided missile developers, they banned Rumble. I mean, if anybody you'd want to keep in the game, I think it's Rumble. I mean, he's bringing the heat. He's bringing the heat down. So I guess they didn't want him in the game. They knew his power. They knew he was too strong. I'm sure there's someone on Oracle that actually plays Rumble, so then maybe that's why they banned it out. But I digress, because what we have here is a stellar matchup, and look at this lineup for Oracle. Diana in the mid, Mundo up top, jungling Xin or jungling Nocturne, and in the bottom lane, Rengar Xin. Now this is a gambit. This is a kind of a cute strategy, if you will. But they have a kill lane down bottom. We've seen kill lanes before. We saw the driving kill lane way back in the day. But really, the key to this kill lane down there is they're gonna have to get a pretty good advantage early if they want to actually be able to do anything with this, because without a ranged AD, it's going to be very, very hard in the late game, especially with a Ryze here, as we see in the mid lane, Gat rocking the triumphant Ryze, so he's won a tournament somewhere along the way, and so he's definitely going to be a factor in this game. But really, overall, I mean, it's a scary late game team. You have Jax, you have Ryze, and you have a ranged AD carry, which Oracle does not have. So this harassment you see down here coming in from Rengar it's gonna have to be very, very potent and effective if they want this strategy to pay off. Meanwhile, Mundo and Malphite in the top lane, it's gonna be kind of a farm fest, but I expect that Mundo is probably gonna have the advantage as that lane goes on. But you can see them being very, very patient in the meantime, daring him to come out, and there is the dive right there, putting a lot of damage on there. Ignite, that one little hit, and this should be the take that it takes, and first blood already for Rengar and Xin in that bot lane. The Wanza and Vikman gonna start doing some work down here, and that's exactly what they need to do. They just need to keep punishing and just really snowball an advantage. It looks like Jack's actually coming down towards that bottom lane with his double buff. Doesn't want to lose that, if anything. But he's going to come down here. He's actually going to farm up, soak up a little bit of extra XP, since they know that Corki is not going to be able to get back there for all of it. But he's already flying as fast as he can back towards that tower, so he doesn't miss out on too much CS here. And the entire goal of that killing down bottom is going to be able to try to mitigate as much of the effectiveness as they can there. So as you can see, I'm actually just going to shift around stuff for easy use for the viewers. They can see what's going on, all the positions, compare me, and it helps me out too. It's a nice little tip for anybody getting into casting. You can do that ahead of time if you have the setup to do it. But overall, at least early lead for Oracle, at least in their strategy in this bot lane. It's going to be very, very interesting. Diana, again, also another dive champion. There's a big theme here. Xin can dive, Rengar can dive in there, Diana can dive in there, and Nocturne especially can dive in there. So their dive comp is very, very strong. So when it gets to that late game, they're going to be all over Corki. And Corki's going to have his dancing shoes on, because he's going to have a lot of dance partners as he tries to get away from this. And luckily, Soraka's down there with those heals, because without a really good sustained support that Raytheon's picked up here, they would be in a world of hurt. Like if that bot lane was running against like a new Caitlyn, or any support that just didn't have sustain, I mean, it would be lights out. It'd be so tough. The one thing that is going for them right now is that it looks like Oracle's actually pushing that bottom lane very, very hard, and that's actually letting Corki actually farm at least a little bit in relative safely. I mean, he can Valkyrie away, and he's pretty safe. He doesn't actually have to worry too much about just being out there in the open dealing with that brush control. Likewise, I would definitely strongly suggest for Sirach, at least in this situation, she has looks like she's trying to rush a really quick Philosopher Stone, get up some gold there, but she's gonna really want a pink ward and put that in the brush so that she could just gain brush control in case they do get into a situation where they are pushing up there. Now, speaking of brush control and warding, the bot lane doesn't have any wards, so if they call Jax down, they will actually be in a little bit of trouble. It'll be a 3-on-2. And Corki isn't really behind in levels at this point, so it's still a situation where I feel like it's very much in the control of Raytheon. If they want to come down there and stomp that out, they could. Looks like Jax is being really, really patient up there in that tri-brush, and a little bit more harass actually onto Corki, getting him to Valkyrie, and it looks like Jax is going to go in here onto Mundo. Mundo throwing his briefcase, and is he going to be able to get out of this? Throws the exhaust on to Malphite, but Malphite's going to Unstoppable Force, pop up in the air, and Dirty Aardvark going to finish that off. And really, really nicely played. Nice patience. Mundo's just hanging around a little bit too long. Didn't hit 6 yet. If he was 6, he could have popped his ult. Had a good time out of it, but unfortunately for him, wasn't able to get the chance. But in the meantime, looks like Nocturne's going to come up there, and that's going to give him some extra experience, and that's good for them because he's going to be able to hit 6 just a little bit faster, possibly by being up there and absorb some of that experience in lane. So that's actually it's not a complete loss because if you die up in that top lane, no one's there to cover. But oh my gosh, Nocturne actually in a ton of trouble, and Dirty Aardvark going to pick up another kill. Oh, Dirty Aardvark, you are a dirty man. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. So 2 kills on the board for Dirty Aardvark, and he's pulled this pretty much even. Top lane starting to kind of snowball, and 2 kills on Jax. I mean, that's good. That's good news for Raytheon at this point because he's one of those late game champions that they're gonna want to have fully online, ready, set up, ready to go when they get the chance to bring him online. And he's already, with those 2 kills stacking up, he has as much CS as pretty much anybody else on the team so far. So I mean, some of that is worth of small jungle camps that aren't worth a lot of gold, but overall it's a very, very good sign, at least for Raytheon at this point, to get him fed up in that mid lane. Looks like Diana just pushing on to Ryze. Ryze actually has tier, and he has looks like he's going to be heading for a Catalyst next. Meanwhile, Diana going double Doran's Ring, so kind of an old school build. We don't see lots of Doran Ring stacking as we used to back in the day. I mean, the standard build used to be back when. It looks like actually Diana rotating up here onto Malphite, but there's a ward right there. Malphite being a smart player, placing that ward. Actually has a pink ward, so he actually has a lot of control over this top jungle. And actually, a counter pink ward. Oh, Mundo, man after my own heart right there, actually sucking in Malphite. Malphite's not going to be able to do anything about this because there's 2 people up here, so they actually now have taken back ward control, and Malphite doesn't have a ward up there. He was probably thinking, hey, you know what, I went Flask, I got my giant spell, I'm super beefy, this is going to be perfect. And lo and behold, lost his pink ward up in that top lane, so he's not going to have any ward control for a while, so he's going to have to just basically have in the back of his head that if I don't see someone there, I have to expect them to be there. And he's going to have to play pretty safe. Luckily, Mundo is pushing on his turret, so he doesn't have to make too many options right now. But Diana coming in here, starting to trade with Ryze. Ryze getting ignited, losing a lot of his spell vamp potential, and Diana's going to win that trade. And so Oracle making a strike back, evening out this game, 2-2. Corki getting jumped on here. Jax coming down possibly for a counter gank. And really, he should know that they don't have any wards here. So it looks like Jack's going to loop around here. And now we are going to have to engage everybody on a Corki. Corki's going to be exhausted, trying to get out of this fight. Jack's coming here, trying to clean up Rengar. Rengar very close to death. Red buff just trying to tick on. This is so close up here. But now Xin Zhao coming in. He's not able to deal enough damage to be able to pick that off. And now Xin Zhao actually diving to Dirty Aardvark to try to finish him off. Dirty Aardvark trying to give chase, but they just don't quite have enough. In comes Diana. She's actually going to land it onto Corki, but she's not going to commit. Think she got a little gun shy there. Didn't want the rest of the team to collapse on. Knew that her team was backing off as well as they were very low. So smart decision, decided not to go in there. And it looks like instead that Diana is possibly going to just farm this lane. River is saying, hey, you know what? I spent all my time to run down here. I'm going to take some of these creeps because you're sure as hell not going to take them. And overall, the Corki's still farming. He's still farming. He's still 36 to 31. CS for the highest CS. They're splitting the CS in that bottom lane, trying to keep them both viable. Looks like Rengar picking up an Avarice Blade and mobility boots. I don't know. I don't know how big of a fan I am of mobility boots. in the bot lane. As far because you're going to be engaging a lot in trading, and once you go in, you lose your advantage of the speed of the boots. Maybe if they're going to roam them a lot, maybe, but I just, I'm not, I think it's gold. I'd rather spend my gold elsewhere at this early stage of the game. He zins out with that brutalizer, and still has 3 health pushes, so he's stacked up. Rengar, again, being smart bottom player. Wanza has actually picked up some wards as well, so that's actually going to be very, very good for them. To be able to ward up and be able to protect themselves against the gank that you just saw come in there. And I thought Jax was going to be able to pick up that kill. It's actually a really big thing for Oracle that they were able to get out of that without actually giving up any kills. Right now, Ryze is actually ahead of Diana. Diana actually had a kill, but as long as Ryze stays even, he's actually in the advantageous situation because he's the one that's going to be better as we get into that late game. He's going to be stronger. I actually saw a recent stat from the recent IEM. And Diana, who was a champion that was normally like this really big to pick, actually lost, every game that she was in, they actually lost a lot of games. Same with Eve. Eve lost a lot of games, and she was a very popular pick before. I think there was one game won, and she was played 4 games, otherwise she was banned. But she was played 4 games, and 3 of the games that she was played in, they lost. So some of these champions, these AP mids that we saw as staples are kind of falling off. Ryze is still one of those ones that just continues to be good throughout all changes and iterations. So yeah, we're seeing him here being strong. He's going to be able to pick up a lot of stuff here for himself actually shortly, and once he goes back. Diana actually started out very, very defensive with the no magic mantle and just trying to deal with Ryze's early poke advantage because she is a melee champion that's going to get her strength as she gets a few more levels under. Now she's in that nice position, and they're actually putting a pretty hard press. Raytheon put a pretty hard press on that mid turret, but getting warded out by the fact that Nocturne's shown up. Mundo actually even thinking about rotating down possibly. It looks like he might go up and take the golems for his team, keep it up, keep farming. He's going to be a tanky beast. He's going to be tough to deal with. I've talked to a lot of players that play jungle, and they're saying that Mundo's kind of ridiculous if you get him to that late game, you get him fully built up because 400 damage cleavers are pretty dirty. But in comes Jax in onto this bottom lane, has a nice little counter strike there, trying to run in here. A little bit of defensive move by Zinzao, trying to push back the group. Oh wow, Corki needs to be careful with that pursuit. They lost vision. They turn around, dive on him right away, deal a lot of damage. Now Jax is in full retreat. Soraka a little bit too far back, wasn't able to put in some heals for his team, and they're going to pick up a double kill on bottom lane. That is actually very, very huge. They stalled out for a little bit there, and Corki was kind of still just getting in his farm. But now that they've actually swung back, this is actually a huge deal because Soraka getting this isn't a big deal. But Nocturne coming down in, and he's just going to get there a second too late. But now they should be able to clean up this turret, and there is that powerful dive team, that powerful kill lane. They're starting to stack up some serious items, and they're able to take that bottom turret with some really good coordination. Actually, if they really wanted to press, they could try to push it farther, but they're actually a little bit low, and Corki is coming back. Jack's actually running bottom too because they are aware of this. Looks like they're actually going to loop around towards Dragon and try to help out there. And it looks like Ryze might be rotating top or trying to take blue for himself, actually warding up a little bit in that river. It looks like he's coordinating with Jax to help him get this blue and try to defend off against this Diana push. Just push him around a little bit now. In this mid lane, being able to clear waves a little bit faster now. Ryze doesn't clear waves very well. He can spam all his spells and actually do a pretty good job of doing some AoE damage. But for the most part, not his typical statistic. Not his main job is to push. That's why a lot of champions like Diana, if she does get ahead, will like to try to get out of lane against a Ryze because he can't really push you back and punish you against your turret very hard. But he can chase. He can actually rotate pretty well with his new ult that gives him move speed. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Jack's rotating up, but he might get seen by this ward. Looks going to run right over the top. Mundo with some good warding here. Very, very nice defensive posture from him. It looks like Nocturne coming in here, and Get already knows what's up. He's just backing off out of this. He's like, nah, not gonna deal with that. It's okay. I'm good. Ooh. Looks like Dirty Aardvark actually jumping to Malphite. Malphite actually uses Unstoppable Force to try and defend them. Jackson come back in this to try and trade, but they don't see that Nocturne's coming in, and Nocturne might decide to go in on this, but it looks like they're just going to back off. Diana actually rotating up too, so they actually have 4 top. Rengar actually trading very, very well right now with Ryze. and getting a little bit confident there. I think he could actually be in trouble if he tries to dive it. But now the full dive is on underneath turret. This is the kind of team comp they have. They want the game they want to play, and Jax is going to be easily killed there. Top lane looking very, very stellar right now, and actually it looks like Rengar taking a bit of damage in this mid lane, trying to trade with Ryze, and Ryze is actually going to stomp him out right there. And that's what I was talking about. I got a little bit excited about doing damage to Ryze, but Ryze really quickly, if you get point blank with him, I mean, his Aeon Flux actually bounces between him and and Rengar, and then combine the AoE with that, you're stacking the AoE damage, and it can do a lot of damage really quickly. Plus, he's getting health back from the spell vamp. So Rengar getting caught out there. So Gat playing Ryze very, very well here. Looks like a lot of ward. I like how many wards we're seeing getting pot up by Raytheon right now. They're actually really stocking up, looking pretty good. Like to see them get out on the map. As we look at their ward coverage currently, they have top river and then bottom river very, very well warded. Looking at red side, they actually have top river and bottom ward. Yeah, they have a lot of good wards around. So both teams actually warding the river pretty well. They have a lot of exits and entrances covered. There's a few holes in their defense, but for the most part, they're buying up and they have wards in stock. So they're being very conscious about that. I like to see that kind of play from teams. And Mundo, one-man army trying to defend against this, and they really just need to. They don't even need to really focus on him. They could actually just go for a turret and just kind of ignore him a little bit. But in comes Nocturne, flashes underneath the turret by Gat turning around, just putting as much damage as he can. Looks like River is trying to run in. Didn't get what he expected. We have one member by each team just kind of filtering in and building on this team fight that's starting to happen right here. A lot of focus onto Mundo, but that's not really where you want it, because Mundo with that ult, you can see right now, just charging up all his health back, putting a little bit of damage on this turret. Gat very, very low. Looks like Diana trying to get there, trying to make something happen, but Jax is going to be able to take her out. Rengar is going to be able to take out Ryze in the meantime, and Jax, like always, just kind of gets there, does his damage, and then he gets run down. Malphite running away, Corki running away, having to burn his flash, has no mana, can't even Valkyrie if they dived onto him. And Oracle coming up on top on these trades so far. As far as the kill game's going, they're doing very, very well for themselves. Raytheon just trying to stay in the hunt so far. They have some kills of their own. They have some good farming going, but for the most part, I mean, you look at the way Jax was looking early. He was pretty much in stride with everybody. Had his 2 kills. Now he's given up 3 deaths. And Nocturne, has surpassed him far in CS, even though and it has some assists in there. He's been around the map doing his business too. So if we look at their total gold, it's 4.3 to 3.9. So Nocturne actually pulled ahead in the jungle, and Jax, slowing down a little bit out of that early kind of advantage he was building for himself with the kills. So overall, having these lanes pretty heavily pushed, we see Rengar actually mess around in the bottom lane. If Zinzou's actually rotate up to the top side of the map, Rengar needs to be a little bit careful here, because he's coming here dealing damage, but if they see him out here, I mean, he's basically on an island by himself. Dana just fishing. She lands that. She will want to go in, deal some damage, trade up a little bit. Fairly confident at this point. She starts to build up items. Looks like she is going to be trying to run towards a Rod of Ages, which is pretty, I mean, it's tanky, and maybe they want that for their kind of dive comp, because they're going to want to get pretty beefcake the way their team is building up, because they have no range characters on their team. And when you have a team like this that has 0 range characters, when we get into the siege portion of the game, where Oracle's comp wants to actually try to finish off this game, it's going to be pretty hard for them, because they only have melee champions. They have to get in, they have to get right next to the turret and punch it with their meat fists. And if that's the case, then all these ranged champions and CC that you see from Malphite, so they can just set up the perfect fight on them, and it's gonna be very, very hard to deal with. So more than likely, what we're gonna see is Oracle's gonna want to try to force fights away from turrets, out somewhere in the field. If they can get a ward or vision advantage, pick up an Oracle's, pick up a pink ward or something. They should be able to get the ward advantage, and then once they have that, they can try to roll that into some sort of team fight advantage where they can catch out Raytheon unawares. Because if they try to dive a turret and Raytheon just goes, all right, we see where all of you are, you're all lined up underneath the turret, they're going to have the bonus damage from that. Corki, hang back there, Soraka babysit him, Malphite go in, start the business, and Jax jumps in too, Ryze comes in, and you have a pretty good team fight on your hands. So it looks like Mundo actually really, really wants Ryze here, using those briefcases. You see how much they start to hurt already, and when he gets later on in the game, he gets even more health. It just gets more disgusting. as it goes on. Pretty good defense by him. They really trying hard to defend that turret. Actually, we have the 2v2 down bottom yet again, and I think it's, in Oracle's best decision. This is the other thing they can do. They can try to split push at this point in the game, but you can see they are kind of letting down some lanes. Malphite, you can see right here, just pushing this top lane very hard. Looks like he doesn't even care about Mundi's like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm just gonna try to kill this turret. He is gonna be able to get it. The question is, will he be able to get away if we see some briefcases land? Nice little attempt to dodge there. And it looks like Mundo's actually just gonna give up the chase entirely. But Dragon being picked up by Red, as you can see, blue team kind of split out here. This is not the look they want. Raytheon does not want to be split like that if they're dealing here. And it looks like Jax is actually going to lead something off, but in comes Nocturne over the wall. Rengar trying to chase down Corki. Corki trying to get as far out of this fight as they can, but you see a lot of damage going on to Jax. Jax is going to leap strike to Corki. Corki is just going to get picked up in the collateral damage. And now Ryze at least pushing on to mid lane. It's finally going to get that Diana coming in here. Sucks him in. Mundo might be able to land a briefcase. No, he's not. And it looks like Gatcat's going to be able to get safe and get back behind his turret. Meanwhile, they have a 3-man press down here in the bottom lane. And yeah, 3v3, but it should be able to be defended again. They don't have a lot of really good pushing power. Like, they can clear waves with Nocturne, but they can't really just like go in there. Oh, wow. Ryze actually in a really bad situation here, getting caught out in the jungle. That is a great pickoff for Oracle right there. But again, it's going to be hard for them to push this turret. They're trying to poke in here, trying to throw in some damage. They have all 5 members down here. It looks like they're going to pick off the tankiest member of the enemy team, Malphite. It looks like aggro might switch over to Mundo, and that is the person they do want the aggro on. Mundo, though, taking a lot of damage here, and Jax comes in at the perfect time with a great counter-strike, able to pick up a kill. Corki just Gatling getting away as he can. They need to get some good vision here, though. They can't have the same situation Corki fell victim to earlier, where he actually got turned around on very quickly. So they're just going to have to back him off out of this. We can see right now the Jacko, JRM, and Rivers running towards their base. Probably gonna blue pill back, buy up. And the thing like I like to stress in a lot of these games, you look at the gold leads. It's like 30.2k to 26.1k. The problem with these leads is that you don't. It's not an effective advantage. It's like an advantage that exists on a scoreboard, like you have points, but until you spend the gold, you don't actually have the advantage. And so when you get a team that, a lot of times, when you see a team that's behind and they wipe a team, they feel really good, but all right, yeah, we can win team fights. Well, really, you were kind of around the same level because maybe you had bought in a cycle and your item timings had just caught up, and you got a good situation. Whereas, once that team comes back, a common mistake is like, oh yeah, let's team fight again, and you don't realize that they just bought up, they spent that 2,000 gold or whatever everybody was banking on their team, and the next thing you know, you're just getting wiped, and you're like, oh, that's bad. Baron goes down, and you're like, oh, okay, we might have lost the game right there. So things you have to be aware of, but pay attention to when your team goes back. Pay attention to your opponent's item. That's always actually really important to gauge power, because a lot of times too, it's in the early laning phase, a lot of it's knowledge of how much damage you can actually output. The items are pretty limited in what they are, but when you get later on in the game, if you want to gauge team power, and I mean, you can't see these gold numbers up at the top when you're in game. You can't see that, oh, we have 27.3k gold total. You can't see that stuff. So what you have to do is you have to look at your opponent's items and engage based off what they have, what only you should buy as far as resistances or counter items go, but also, how strong are they? Like, who are the champions that have the most gold on them, the targets that we should basically take out, and then, who are the champions that are weak, maybe that are susceptible, like who are their weaknesses, who do we not have to worry about because they're underfarmed or whatever. And a lot of that's communication, a lot of it's just game knowledge and just looking at the stuff, looking at what you have, look what they have, comparing, and starting that arms race and making decisions based off of that. So as we can see here, as I look at both teams, the one thing is always to look at is AD carry, how the AD carry is doing. And you see Corki here is actually trying to go Triforce, and he has a decent amount of CS, but he still doesn't have a Triforce yet. And the reason I didn't like Triforce in Season 2. We have a little engagement here. Nocturne getting very deep underneath the turret, but he's going to get Ryze comboed right there and backed up by Jax and takes a lot of damage. He is going to be able to fall down, but the dive just continues, and Rise is going to eventually be able to fall here. Jax trying to pick up a kill. Looks like he is going to be able to get on Zinzao, but now he's starting his retreat again, which usually typically doesn't work out for him. Ignite going to be able to finish off that kill, and Malphite rotating up in here, but he's way too deep, and he might get picked off here. Red buff getting a tick on him. No, it's not going to get him. Oh, it is going to get him. So triple kill, but Corki coming in the back, being able to pick up Rengar, who thought he had actually escaped all of that kerfuffle, and he's not going to be able to do it. So big little engagement there, and we're seeing, again, Oracle just pushing their strategy of like, you know what, in order for us to take that turret, we have to get really bold, really aggressive, dive in there. Nocturne getting a little bit ahead of the team, I'd say. It's good because it's initiating the rest of his team, and they're coming out ahead on a lot of these trades. But overall, I'd have to say that he's just a little bit slightly ahead, and that happens a lot for Nocturnes. And if we look at his item build, he's building very damage intensive. He's not building defensive, because what you'll see from a lot of Nocturnes, especially at the top level these days, is you'll see them go just very, very tanky, because you already deal a lot of natural damage with your abilities. And I mean, we can even look at him here. So you can see, like here, Dustbringer, while on the trail and targets, you gain 50% movement and 15 attack damage. So you basically gain just attack damage for just being on that. So that's just like added attack damage in there. And well, that's entirely all of it, but plus he has his passive as well. So when it all comes down to it, if you go pretty tanky, you can still be very, very effective as a jungle Nocturne. Plus you're harder to deal with, harder to kill. And that's usually a better way to go, because if you go this really heavy damage build, it can be great for like carrying a game when we're really, really far ahead. But for the most part, it's not that great against coordinated teams that can actually just single you out. And if you dive in too early, like he's been doing, you can get torn down really quickly. So now we have a little bit of a lull. We see Oracle actually rotating around top, being pretty aggressive here, putting in wards. Malphite's going to put a ward near Baron. Make sure they have tabs on that, and they're going to start to press the turret again. And again, the tough part about the turrets is can they be able to get it? But Rye is way out of position, actually having to burn Flash because he came from a completely bad direction. Maybe he was trying to bait this out. He's actually going to focus a lot of his damage onto Rengar. Rengar going to try to flash out of this. Malphite has been doing a lot of great just basically stalling action right there for him, and Nocturne possibly going to come in, but Diana going to be picked off as well, and it looks like Raytheon looking very, very strong here. I haven't actually dropped a member. Slow going on to Mundo, but Mundo should be able to get out of this, throwing back those briefcases. I don't know if they're going to fully actually commit to this. They look like they're trying to do that, but I think that might be a little bit of a mistake if they actually fully just follow this up. Don't think they have what it takes to actually, lock them down and stick onto them. See, Mundo is so hard to deal with, has that Warmog's armor. He's pretty beef. He's pretty beefcake right now. But they've actually spread out a lot of their kills very smartly. I mean, you can look at Diana, Zinzao, Rengar, all have 4 kills, about 2 deaths. But really have a good farm total. They've actually still split bottom very, very evenly, so they're both pretty much chugging along about the same pace. A lot of good farm for the rest of their members, but really Gat and Corki, you can see, even though that early phase was really rough on him, look at him now. He has 176 CS. That's pretty much double what that dual lane down bottom has, and now to combine they have 180, so yeah, if you split it out. But the fact is that Corki is still as strong as he would have been. So, and he's actually finally finished his Triforce, so now he's going to be able to hit a little bit harder, have something in the bag. I think they kind of lucked out, though, a little bit, too, because Corki's one of those champions that he has a lot of potential mage poke, and he's actually pretty good at tearing down tanky champions. The problem for him is that his actual natural auto attack range is pretty short, so he can't just be like if they had a Caitlyn that was just like staying as far back as she could, trying to poke at them. It would be a lot safer for her than a Corki, who's basically would just have to rely on missiles. So Corki's just going to have to realize that this team is very dive heavy, and he's going to have to, in these engagements they're going to be coming up, he's going to have to stay almost like a little bit farther, like a half a screen farther away than he normally does, like stay at missile range from the closest target, because if he gets any closer, it's just going to be really, really bad for him. When he decides to commit, it's going to have to be when his team is starting to swing back, or they've kind of won, but I don't think their front line is actually strong enough, to be honest, to deal with what's going on right now, this pressure that's coming in from Oracle. And Oracle, they're putting in some pressure, but again, the fact that they have no way to actually close out these turrets is kind of it's the weakness of this team comp, and this late game comp that we see Raytheon has just bodes well for them to possibly be able to take this game in the end if they're able to stall it out long enough. And I can tell you right now that the way this game is going, it looks like it's going to be a longer game. We're probably going to have about a 40-minute game. There's probably at least 10 minutes left in this matchup the way it looks currently right now. But Soraka might put an end to that. She's going to get caught out here, and that's actually really, really bad for Raytheon. Although they still have a lot of their key members up, they still can defend pretty well. But being a member down is not something they wanted to have. And Oracle just needs to be, like, if I was Oracle, and I'm in their heads right now, you have this cute comp. It's actually pretty strong for diving and doing what you want to do. You have a good advantage. You know you do. Again, get the wards up, get in Oracles, throw it on Mundo. Mundo's pretty much never going to die. So throw it on Mundo, have him run around, play Minesweeper, get rid of all the wards, get rid of all the vision, then just go lay a trap for them, because you know if you fight them in the open ground, you're going to crush them. You're going to crush Raytheon, and you're going to have an advantage. But the problem is and the other factor is, you know that if you don't get them to do that, and you don't like win something big and then push after that, or take a big objective, then you're going to be sitting in a scenario where you're like, okay, it's late game, Rise is fully built up, Corky's fully built up, he can melt anybody here, and Jax is fully built up, so there's too many targets now to dive. We can blow all our attacks onto one or two of the carries, but will it fully take them down? Will we take a lot of damage in the collateral? Then whichever one's left, are they just gonna just pick us all off? It's gonna be a tough scenario for them. But overall, Oracle's still very much in a little bit of a lead. They only have a 3K gold advantage. That's nothing as we're getting into this stage. The farther along you get in the game, the less the gold advantage means, because really early game it's partly levels, it's partly gold, it's partly a lot of factors. But mainly it's levels combined with the gold advantage. But then once the levels even out, then it's just gold advantage. But then at that stage, everybody has so many core items that the gold advantage, like you'd be 10k up and your teams could still be even in team fights. So, I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. That's why you see a lot of the top pro games where these teams that have really good solid team fights, team fighting skills, they get to that late game, and even though you see them far behind, they slowly creep back, and you're like, oh my gosh, now they have the gold lead. Well, really that gold lead wasn't as big as you thought it was when you're at the very, very later stages of the game, when you hit up towards that 40-minute, 35-minute later mark. I mean, it starts to really become minimal. 2K at this point is basically even game for both teams, really. So just chugging some water, keeping it clean. Frozen Heart for Riot, so he's going to be pretty tanky. That's actually going to be very good for their team, at least for the fact that they actually have to deal with a lot of AD-ish champions. So since they have to deal with a lot of AD champions in here, it's actually be very good overall, just reducing total damage. And Riot should have some decent sustainability, although he has been the first target they've been picking off in pretty much every team fight if they can, because Corky has been being pretty elusive for them, but he usually gets so low that it's hard for him to actually stand there and deal any damage out. Jax usually going in, getting one kill, and then trying to run, and then dying. I mean, really, Jax at this point, if he had, he needs the sustained power. Because if Jax had sustained power, like, he's dealing his damage, he's getting health back, then you get into a scenario, which is, I think that's what he's kind of trying to build. We might be trying to go Gunblade or something next. I don't know. Oh, no, it looks like he might be going Rageblade. I think he's going Rageblade. But the point is that if he actually got some return on his damage, then it'll be a scenario where he can get in there and stick in there and just fight. Because running away after he pulls all his cooldowns, yeah, you killed someone, but you're just gonna get died and slowed. I mean, you have a team here from Oracle that's just built to run people down. That's what they're supposed to do. And if you're a melee champion trying to run away, well, good luck with that. I mean, unless you have your Leap Strike come back up and a teammate able to help you, you're in trouble. So Counter-Strike going up, mitigating a lot of the early damage. Looks like Noxer's going to come in, and this is actually be really good. They've actually sectioned off a lot of Raytheon's team into this bottom jungle. They're really trying to get to Corky, but Corky's actually going to be able to get out of this a little bit. We see all the carries, though, down, pretty much down, very, very low in health. And it looks like they're backing off Rengar, but wow. I thought they were in a lot of trouble right there, just simply because none of their carries could fight underneath the turret. Like, if they pressed that and wanted to dive in there, they'd kill all three of the carries, and what's left? It's a Soraka and a Malphite. I'm not scared of that ever. And that's not, what are they going to, they're going to hit you with their big fluffy down pillows. But they're going to go and they're going to pick off this dragon. This is safer. This is a safer move, so I don't disagree with Oracle's choice there. Again, their ability to push turrets is pretty much null and void. So the game they've been playing is just kind of like a standard game you would normally play, except for the fact they have no ability to push turrets. And they keep trying to catch people out in team fights, but there's still vision control in the jungle for Raytheon. What they really need to do, again, is pick up an Oracle, go in there, remove all the vision, know that you've removed it all, set up, gain complete vision of over all the jungles, catch them when they try to pick up like a lazy red buff, which is where they were down in position. Do something like that, because that is the best way for you to win with your team comp right now. As it is now, I said we had about 10 minutes in the game. We're probably looking at a 45-minute game now. I mean, the 5 minutes that just happened after I talked about that, nothing has really happened. There's just been lots of farming going back and forth. There's been some team fights, but the gap is really not spreading that much so far. So it's basically the game just kind of stalling out for Oracle. They don't quite know how to finish it. They're just kind of hoping that one of these team fights sticks and they're able to get a big, huge thing happening, when really it's a matter of you want to manufacture that. I mean, you know what your team strength is, manufacture it. I mean, you chose this for a reason. I'm sure they've played it before. I'm sure they're not just like, hey, you know, it'd be really fun, let's do this. And usually against teams, like if the team's not prepared, they don't have a good head on their shoulders, you know, that AD gets a little bit behind that bottom lane, you snowball it really hard, you take a bunch of turrets, like it doesn't really matter because you're so far ahead. But against teams that are pretty stalwart, like Raytheon's showing right here, and they hold out and they hold even with you, it becomes really hard to finish a game, especially when your AP mid's even melee. So you have this pretty cool team comp, and you know that your weakness is a late game. You have to end it early, and I can't stress that enough for Oracle. So in the future, when you play this team comp, remember my voice in your head telling you that you should buy Oracles, throw it on Mundo, throw it on your tanky champion, right on there, Minesweeper, remove all their vision, all this vision. Like, look at Blue's vision. Like, Blue's vision right now is solid. They have Baron, they have their own jungle. They're sitting great. Red's vision right now, nothing in the enemy jungle. So how are they ever gonna set up a fight unless it's just like in lane and they're being really stupid and pushing out? It's not gonna happen. So definitely in the future, I would say Oracles, pink wards, even if you really want to do. Pink wards aren't as efficient, but just spend that, you know, 400 whatever gold, just run around and clear them out. That is the key to the game. I think Oracle could have ended this a long time ago if they tried to manufacture that, or even better yet, even if you don't want to get rid of their vision, you can just start a Baron. I mean, you have a lot of damage. You can tear it down. They have to come to you and just pick a fight. Pick a fight. I think they're a little bit unsure. I mean, if I was at Oracle's heads right now, the only thing I can think too is that they're a little unsure of how strong they are overall, and it looks like they luckily have a warded Baron, so they are going to see this going down. Nocturne has a lot of dive steal potential, and he's just going to dive in early. He's actually going to lead the charge, but he's going to be torn apart even though he spell shields early. But that's going to give enough time for Zinzao to get in. He splits the team, trying to deal a lot of damage. We see Corki actually has some pretty good spacing right now, but Ryze has actually been sucked in by Diana. We see Corki really wanted that kill onto Diana, and he actually sucks in way too far. He's out of position. He's going to be picked off here. And this is actually very, very bad now, because after Jax falls, it's pretty much donezo for the rest of the Raytheon team. And Soraka, poor Soraka, abandoning her team to their demise. Bloody Face 77 didn't want a bloody face, wanted to run away. And so now we just have the remaining members of Oracle running around here, and they have 30 seconds, so by and large, I expect them to get some turrets now. They have to get some turrets now to make up for the fact that they've had such a hard time getting in there, and it is hard for them. So they'll pick up one, and they should be able to pick up one mid as well if they try to push that. I would suspect that. And oh, actually, I think they could take this next one. And if they do that, that's going to be basically the end. Oh, wow, they actually backed off Soraka. Zinzao is actually coming up here. He's going to take mid turret, and I think they'll take this bottom turret. And once they take that, I mean, that is huge. That is actually a big part of the game right there. That's a big monkey off the back of Oracle. And it's funny because, too, as I said, like, they should have went to Baron and did it, and Raytheon pretty much did them a favor. I think Raytheon got a little bit impatient and was like, I don't know what's going on. We set up some pretty good wards, but they didn't have their own Oracle. or pink ward, so they didn't know if Baron was actually warded or not. So then they go in there and they actually did Oracle a favor. They got them into a team fight that they wanted. So Oracle, I think, lucked out a little bit there. And now that they've taken that base turret in the top lane, I'd say that's huge because you don't have to push a turret to take that inhibitor anymore. You can just 5-man push in there and be like, let's go. Let's go toe-to-toe. Let's do this. And they're going to have to fight you over it if they don't want you to take their inhibitor. And that's going to open up the game. Once they have that auto-pushing lane, I find a lot of teams, especially at this level, and no disrespect for these teams, they're actually playing pretty decently, but, I mean, there's a few sloppy mistakes here and there by both teams, but for the most part, like, at this level, it's like, once you get down an inhibitor, and even actually, you know what, I take that back. At the highest level, even, the first team that takes the first inhibitor wins the game like at least 80% of the time. It's something like 86% of the time, I think. At least at IM, that's how it was. So at the high top pro level, the team that takes the inhibitor first wins 86% of the time. That is a huge deal. So protecting your base turrets, for having that layer that you can actually defend, especially in the way this team comp and this team comp is putting out. We see Mundo finally with that Oracle sweeping around here. It's exactly what they need. Briefcake's actually going to land onto Soraka. Soraka is not long for this world. We see a Malphite coming in here. Ryze actually flashed over. He's 1v5, and Oracle looks like they are set up to take this game right now, jumping far ahead. Far ahead, and it looks like they're just going to take up this Baron, and that should give them the confidence to close this out. Should really give them the confidence to close this out. But the fact is, the matter is that, you know, also the team that takes the first Baron, guess what, wins 86% of the time. I'm not making up these numbers. These actual numbers were from IM recently, so I think it was it's like team that takes the first dragon wins like something like 70% of the time, and then Baron's like 80 and inhibitors like 90 something percent. So good little stats to know that those objectives are actually a big deal. Not that you should do whatever you can. I mean, sometimes when you take first dragon, you get whomped on. Obviously, doesn't matter at that point. It's kind of an even trade. But in general, you know, if you take a nice little clean dragon, you know that you're already setting yourself up for a pretty healthy advantage. Usually those come off of something like ganking bottom, so it is a big, huge kind of starter for your snowball advantage, and a lot of teams, especially at the high level, are really good at closing them out. Now at this level, sometimes a little bit harder, but once you take that outer turret and you open up the inhibitor, you have an auto pushing lane. In the late game, you want to keep all your lanes pushing. That's the ideal thing, is you have every lane pushing, and then you go in and you can actually rotate between which lane you want to put pressure on turrets. You finally whittle them down, you take them down, you close out your opponent. That's the best way to take them out. But when teams don't know how to really take turrets before the stage where they can, you know, have really good pressure to push all their lanes, and, you know, have all those like team coordination mechanics down, or maybe even the abilities to do it with like a Shen that can split push or something like that, getting down into inhibitors is the next best thing, because you know your super mains are going to auto push your lane for you. What Nocturne's doing up top is smart. This is what you have to do. You have to push up your lane like this, and Nocturne is pushing the lane for his team, split pushing and doing some work, and Malphite advancing way far ahead of his opponents, and Corki just getting dived on behind the front lines. Malphite actually can't do any damage unless anybody else is there. Corki actually getting buffed up by Soraka to try to get some health back. Rengar trying to get out of turret range. And it looks like Jack's actually going there doing some pretty good damage, and they're going to be able to pick up Xin Zhao finally. But Mundo is just one of those champions that doesn't want to die. Actually throw out those cleavers, and you see Diana come in and just absolutely annihilate him very quickly, just waiting for another rotation, and in she comes again, is going to clean up Ryze. There's the double kill. Now Rengar trying to chase down Malphite, and Malphite, as tanky as he is, he's just not enough to stand up with what's going on. We see Nocturne in the top actually pushing down the inhibitor currently. That is going to fall, and mid turret should probably fall now soon. It looks like Nocturne actually popping his ult to scare out the enemy team possibly. Really just takes the inhibitor, and now the rest of the team backing off, and now they have that auto pushing lane, and that's going to be huge for them. That's going to be a big deal. So Oracle making big strides to close out this game. Looks like they might go back and then just finally just fully buy up, and then we'll see the last coup de grace, if you will. They've pretty much, you know, taken out Raytheon's legs. They've given him an arrow to the knee. He's fallen down, and he's just basically lying there waiting for Oracle to come up there and, you know, put their boot, put the axe in the neck, finish it off. Raytheon, you know, if they were somehow able to stall this out, like if they wouldn't have lost that base turret, if they would have never done the Baron, and this game, heaven forbid, it's already going to be, you know, a pretty long game. But if they drug it out fully and they had full item builds, it would be a very, very tough proposition for an all melee team to try to deal with a fully fed Corki Jax Ryze. Although we see Ryze finally just really getting in any sort of real sustain with the Hextech Revolver. But you know, once if he was able to get a lot of that fully online, I mean, he would be in business. It would be very, very hard to get rid of him. They have to put a lot of focus on him. Same with Ryze, and Corki could just sit back and do his thing. Corki pretty buff right now. I mean, he has Infinity Edge, Triforce, and he has his, most importantly, Last Whisper. So he's gonna be able to tear through all those chain vests and stuff that people are building up. Looks like we see Blade of the Ruined King onto Xin Zhao, so that actually be good for him to actually chunk into a little bit of Malphite actually as a target. He'll be able to do a lot of damage there. Though usually poor Xin Zhao is usually the first one to fall. As you can see here, he actually has 4 deaths so far, getting pretty much focused. But he's going in there, he's doing a job, doing what he's built to do, pretty much for their team. Looks like Ryze right now actually has the Muramana. Kind of interesting play, not actually going for AP, going for kind of like an AD DPS kind of output, which I've seen Ryzes do it both ways. Mostly usually Zephyr or the AP route is usually a little bit more preferred on him, I would imagine. Plus it makes him even more tankier with the mana shield. That's kind of the route I would expect to go. So I don't know. It's his choice. But it's not going to make him die less, which is kind of what they need to do. Kind of stall out and die less. He has a way to actually tear through there. He has that 40% magic pen, so he can actually, on top of his masteries and such, so he can actually tear through any magic resist that is there. Although, don't see a giant abundance of it. There's a decent amount out there, but it's nothing crazy. No one, they actually. Looks like they haven't built a Runic Bulwark yet. Once they build that up, it'll give them a decent amount of protection. But right now I mean, I think overall just health-wise, they're pretty tanky. The only one that's not really tanky, as you can see, is Nocturne, who Nocturne, again, built another damage item. So Nocturne, the only tip I would give the Jacko so far throughout this game is I would say build a little bit tankier with your Nocturne. You don't need the damage out. His build is basically for, like, if you were rolling the game and you're going to finish this out in 20 minutes, like, you just go all these damage items, and I mean, you wouldn't even get a chance to get them on Mortis, but that's kind of the build he's going. He's a little bit too squishy, for my taste for the team comp they have. Although they do have a lot of beef, but it's not like he's going to be able to deal damage from afar or anything like cute like that. He's going to have to get in there and do something. And we see here that Oracle really just, I don't know, like there needs to be some trigger to get them to close out the game, because they have the tools to do it. They have the lead. They have the advantage. They're just kind of playing a little bit scared right now. Playing a little bit scared. They're actually poking both turrets back and forth. I actually like this, at least so far. They actually have mid turret down a pretty good ways. Now bottom coming in, just poking back and forth. Nice little ward over the wall from Raytheon, trying to defend this out. And again, whoops, hit my mic. But again, if they can actually stall this out, they can actually win this game. That's the crazy part. And Oracle have to be, I mean, they feel pretty good. They feel like they have the win. They're just trying to find a way to finish it off. But overall, like going and get it, like, to be honest, like, I'm going to tell you right now, like, they're killing this dragon. This dragon, like I was talking about the gold advantage later on, this dragon means nothing. Like, that dragon, equivalently to the beginning of the game, to what a dragon's worth, is about, like, it's like 50 gold in relevance, like, really to me. You do get a decent amount of gold, but at this point in the game, it's a minuscule amount of gold. It's not going to mean a lot unless they go back and buy. Looks like they're going to rotate up here, get another Baron. And that looks like this might be the thing they need to finish this off. And it looks like Raytheon's going to fight them, and this is not what they want to do. Ryze is actually going to get caught out here, and now they actually have Paranoia, but no dive yet. There's the dive onto Ryze. Ryze is finally possibly going to be taken down. Now he's going to get on Corki way too deep in there. Really bunched in, got sucked in by his team, and Soraka Gonna die right in front of Malphite. Malphite, the only member left up, and this is pretty much GG. Oracle finally gonna finish this one off. And really, if I go back to it and I look at Raytheon, I think, honestly, if they would have just not paid attention to Baron at all, if they just said, you know what, Oracle, you can have Baron. I'm not kidding you. I think they probably could have stalled this game out till like forever and eternity, got all their full item builds, and possibly won the game. Like, that's how silly this game has been to finish. But that one early Baron getting picked off, losing that base turret, starting the push war that allowed them to pull this off, and then going to the Baron right as it was getting picked up by Oracle. I mean, just really. And, you know, in Rise a little bit ahead, but maybe a little bit in the back of their head they kind of wanted to end, the Torment to end. A lot of teams, they'll lose patience. It's actually a skill to have in League of Legends, to have patience as a team. And they just lost a little bit there. But I think Raytheon really had a chance at this. And Oracle, so again, key points, I would definitely say from Oracle's side, Nocturne, build a little bit more tankier. You can take that advice or not. And then get the Oracle earlier, clear out wards, press your advantage like you had, because you had a really solid advantage. I think you could have finished this off. I'm not even kidding you, probably maybe 20 minutes earlier into this game. If it was cleanly executed, you got Division 1, a few key team fights and pushed off of it. I think you could have finished off the game a little bit earlier. And no offense to Raytheon, but I mean, even look at their farm. Like, they're farming up pretty well. They're starting to get up their items, but like, if they really do get to that end tier, like their team is set up to be pretty strong. But unfortunately, weren't able to hold out enough. Had a few bad Baron fights, and overall, really a pretty interesting game and a look at it, and a pretty good representation, if you will, of how to finish off games, what not to do, what to do, and a little bit of tips. So thank you for joining me. I am Paddo from RaiseYourWeaponMedia. This is the AHGL Raytheon versus Oracle. Oracle picking up this game, picking up the victory with their unorthodox lineup there, and congrats to them, and best of luck in the future for Raytheon.